This is Inclusive Talk. It's a feminist discourse invited to educate, inform, and promote disability voices in current affairs. It is hosted by 3 young women with disabilities who are Asha Namatovu, Maureen Kalunji, and myself, Shana Shami. I will give Asha a moment to speak to you all, and then myself, I am a gender and disability rights expert. Asha, please go on.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Asha Ajrush Namatov. I'm an accountant by training and a disability inclusion advocate by passion. I'm very focused and committed to achieving SDGs 4 and 8, because without those two, we wouldn't be here. I know that all of us are doing a lot of good work within our spheres of influence, and I appreciate our guests for the evening, Richard and Julius. You're welcome on board. For our other listeners, hi Ruth, nice to see you here. Thank you for listening in. Ruth has been with us, I think, on almost on all our inclusive talks. This platform is very interactive and open. I forgot to say that I also founded and ran Nafet Sobola Foundation, an organization that advocates for and with people of short stature. And that's about it. That's about it. So welcome everyone and have a good evening.
Thank you, Asha. Maureen, you're next.
Good evening to our listeners. My name is Maureen Kalunji. I'm a disability and gender expert. I'm so happy to be here with you, and thanks to our speakers of the day. As we are winding our SDGs, I'm glad to be here once again.
Thank you so much, Maureen. To give you a bit of what we've been doing, previously, that's last week, we did dissect the status of Sustainable Development Goal 13, climate action, with Miss Annette Babidia Luambo, a disability inclusive disaster risk and reduction expert, and Mr. Roger Noir, a gender and climate justice activist from the Association of Refugee Women in Uganda. So these two speakers deepened our knowledge and exposure to climate change, its varied effect on the lives of persons with disabilities, and they called upon us to be climate change advocates for purposes of attitudinal change in climate change deniers. So most of these discussions have been recorded, and they're actually available in the highlight section of this Twitter page. But now let's go on to Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is why we're here. The goal calls for inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable human settlements and cities. But in Uganda, there's no other example. There's none other than the pothole exhibition, which exposed to the entire world the state of our roads, the increasing population of slum dwellers because of the unaffordable housing, and of course the insufficient transportation system, which all point to regression where the targets of SDG 11 are concerned. In addition to this, inclusive, safe and resilient cities call for accessible public spaces for all, including persons with disabilities. However, the infrastructure environment, the inadequate access to mobility devices, and cost of reparation impose their own barriers to persons with disabilities. So tonight for this goal, we are speaking to Mr. Opoi Julius from OJ Disability Care and Mr. Hamba Richard from TEENs Uganda to broaden our knowledge and our understanding of SDG 11 and progress in inclusion of persons with disabilities. So I'd like to have Julius introduce himself. Julius, please speak to our listeners for tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Shamim, and everyone listening to me. My name is Julius Opoi, but people know me so much from where I come from as OJ. I am the team leader. You can call me the ED or Chief of Party for OJ Disability Care Foundation, whose acronym is OJ Care. I am also a disability advocate, of course, and I am one of you. I am a person with a physical disability. I'm a polio survivor. I am a journalist by profession, but of course later, as life continues, we continue pursuing social works as part of my study area as well. I am very happy for what you guys have been doing in terms of creating the disability awareness to the globe, because this space does not end here. There are quite a lot of people who follow your work. Some of them remain invisible, some of them remain visible. But all in all, I want to say that this is quite something that we all can say that it's tremendous. It is actually good. We appreciate you for what you are doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Julius. I am really happy that we could host you and Richard tonight, because I know like how busy you guys are. Richard, could you please say something to our listeners?
Yeah, thank you so much, Shamim and the whole team. I'm happy to join you for this particular session on SDG 11. Maybe to start with, my name is Richard Hamba. I am the director and the founder of TEENs. TEENs stands for Training, Education and Empowerment for Neighborhood Sustainability in Uganda. But just to say, on the side of the CSOs, TEENs is the lead organization for SDG 11 in regards to implementation and reporting in Uganda. So as we mentioned, most of the issues that because of the SDG 11 in regards to policy issues, regards to implementation, I think we've done quite some work here and there, not only us, but together with our partners. And we have been at the forefront of promoting some particular concepts like the smart city concept in Uganda, but also maybe in regards to also drawing pilot or demonstrations just to see that we have applied research kind of information based on facts. I am also proud to say that I am a board member of Shelter and Settlement Alternatives on housing issues, part of the National Urban Forum under the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development. But also, Shamim, as you are aware, in regards to the caucus group for accessibility, I'm the current chairperson of the National Accessibility Audit Team, supported by UNAPID, another one of those other organizations that support initiatives on physical disability. So I'm glad to be part of this audience. And thanks to our listeners for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. Yes, we actually have an accessibility caucus overseeing accessibility to the physical environment, and Richard, like he said, he is the chairperson of our caucus, and the right person to have in this space because of his commitment to SDG 11. So now let's dive into today's questions and discussions. Let's start with Julius. You've done a lot of good work, around ensuring accessibility for, not accessibility, rather mobility for persons with physical disabilities. Something I really look up to you too for, and I appreciate you for. But in that regard, how do you ensure that the free wheelchairs provided by your organization are tailored to the specific needs and abilities of each individual, promoting independence and mobility for persons with disabilities in Uganda?
Yeah, thank you so much, Shamim, for this question. I appreciate you for giving me this opportunity to share with the world what we have been up to, what we have done, and where we want to be with our work. Yeah, as OJ Disability Care Foundation, we are a professional entity, and we want to share with you that all our wheelchair recipients undergo the process of what we call wheelchair assessment. And this wheelchair assessment is done by a physical physiotherapist, whom we always seek for their service from the regional referral hospital. This is done in order to ensure that our beneficiaries or the recipients of our free gift of mobility are able to get what we would term as appropriate wheelchairs. So in our work, we just do not give a wheelchair, not out of pity. We work in a professional way whereby we ensure that all the beneficiaries go through the wheelchair assessment in order for them to get appropriate wheelchair. This is also one of the requirements by Ministry of Health and World Health Organization, and it helps to prevent the secondary deformity or causing a more severe disability. Later on, as we proceed, we will be able to share with you that in most places where we have gone to in terms of our wheelchair provision camps, we have found a number of people who received wheelchairs maybe from different entities in previous years. Their disability has worsened as a result of a wrong wheelchair. So it's the reason why for us, it's not out of a pity. We do not feel pity for anyone. We just do not pick any wheelchair and give because we feel pity. Ours, it's a more professional way, in a way that we want people, the wheelchairs to be of help, not to cause any harm. Thank you. Hello, Shamim?
Yes,
Yes.
Julius.
So in
Here.
regard to
Thank you so much.
what you asked me, that's what we do in terms to ensure that our beneficiaries are safe and they are okay in terms of what we give them.
Thank you so much, Julius. Asha, please.
I wanted to ask a follow-up question to Julius.
Yes.
Before I go to Richard.
Yes.
Yes, hi Julius. Thank you for all the fantastic work that you're doing in ensuring that everyone gets mobility. This is something that is big for those of us that, especially for those of us that use wheelchairs.
Yes.
I wanted to know, you're saying that you assess the recipients of the free gift, but I wanted also to know how you mobilize. Is your program currently serving the entire country, or at the moment you're focused in certain areas? And how does someone who needs a free wheelchair get access to it, get access to your team?
Oh, thank you so much, Asha, for your wonderful question. In terms of our work, you'll believe and agree with me, Asha, that the demand need for wheelchairs is in our country. It's just like, I don't know how to term it, but it's just like somebody hearing that there's free money being given in a community. Our wheelchairs, we partner with different stakeholders in different communities, including the leadership of persons with disabilities at the district level, at the village level, then churches. We partner with different stakeholders in terms of mobilizing for us the beneficiary or those who should be able to receive a free gift of mobility from us. In terms of work, honestly speaking, we have gotten the demand need for mobility across different districts in Uganda. For this year, in our consignment that we are about to get done with this delivering or providing people with disabilities, we received 540 wheelchairs. In 540 wheelchairs, we had in plan to reach out to about 30 districts. But later on, we realized that we were just not going to be able to make an impact because each district would receive about 15 or 20, and yet the list of the beneficiaries that we received in those districts were in hundreds. So what we decided to do in terms of improving, we said, no, let's reduce the number of districts, about 12 of them, and provide more wheelchairs in order for us to create the impacts. Then those that will miss, we shall be able to include them in our 2025 program, since we believe that even Rome was not built one day. So that's how we work. But our wheelchairs, honestly, our focus is to ensure that they move across the whole country. So if we finish certain districts, we don't go back to those districts again. We move to another region and provide the free gift of mobility. I hope this has been of great help to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Julius. For now, let me go to Richard. So Richard, my question to you is, how does the organization's work in sustainable low carbon transport ensure accessibility and inclusivity for persons with disabilities in Uganda's transportation system?
Well, thank you, Asha.
Richard?
Yes.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. Maybe to start with, I should say TEENs as a CSO is both a policy and implementation kind of organization. So in regards to policies, our contribution to policies, since 2011, we contributed to the non-motorized transport policy under the Ministry of Works and Transport of Uganda. So that research that we did led to what we currently have as the NMT policy, or non-motorized transport policy, that was launched in 2012. But the actual NMT policy also was to have what we call an implementation manual, which was of course done about 2019, and our contribution was very paramount in that regard, because this a policy without a manual for implementation becomes almost redundant, especially for local governments to implement. So at that level, we thought would make a big contribution in regards to contributing to research as well, but also in terms of demonstration. And one of the key things that we contributed to was the Namirembe Rumu Street NMT pilot, that walking stretch. It's both for pedestrians and for cyclists, because in the city, we thought it was very important for us to have a pilot that maybe if any other person wanted to reference something and see how it works, without having to pose a lot of questions and all that, that could be one of the key issues. So as a 4-kilometer stretch, it has actually demonstrated that cities can actually be more accessible if you had pedestrianized roads and roads that are for cycling. So it is quite inclusive, so that we don't focus on motorization alone, but we focus on all the other modes of transport for mobility, for people who want to travel through and within the city. So that's one of the key issues. But largely enough, we're also part of the project that promoted Smart Moving Kampala, where we had, of course, spaces that were extended to create parking or more spaces for people to still walk. So those are some of the projects we implemented. But still, among the policies that we also been part of that are very key, or policy frameworks, our contribution to that time it was objective number 3 for sustainable transport in regards to the National Development Program 3 and 4. So we contributed a lot of information with facts to ensure that motorization can actually also coexist with pedestrianization and cycling. So we think that by having these in the policy frameworks, implementation becomes easy because of the expansion, Uganda's expansion in regards to cities. Now we currently have about 11 cities, secondary cities, So we use some of the information we've done through research to inform some of the new developments in regards to universal road designs for everyone to access. The other point is that when we are promoting transport, we don't focus on only cycling and walking, but we also promote mass transport. So mass transport, we have the bus rapid transport systems, but we also been part of the promotion of the standard gauge railway as one of the mass mobility options. So we know that once we design road networks or rail networks that are easy and accessible for people to maybe board and maybe dock as well, without a lot of struggles, we contribute a lot for people to use these mobility means with ease. We also doing a lot of research under what we call the Green Growth Strategy for Uganda, and we are part of the communication team. So we believe that by promoting more of the green mobility options, we know that future transport will actually move away from these polluting mobility options that we currently have, especially in motorization, to more options that are inclusive for all in regards to doing away with pollution. So we are promoting more of the clean modes of transport, and we ascertain that as we move away from more of informality in mobility, the more formal mobility options will actually encourage inclusiveness for all. I think at the moment maybe I can speak to that. Yes. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you so much, Richard. I want to take you back. You kept on talking about inclusivity and accessibility. And I wanted to ask, in this walking stretch that you're saying is from, I think, Namirembe and the smart moving Kampala spaces.
Yeah.
Are they accessible for someone like me and Julius that use wheelchairs?
Yes, definitely, yeah. The NMT pilot is actually very inclusive in a way that, or very accessible in such a way that we've instead of having the narrow roads for motorization, we focus on having wider road networks that can have a meter for pedestrians, and maybe 2 meters for cyclists. So we know that that is good enough. That's enough space for someone who's using a wheelchair to move from one point to the next. But of course, like I said, it's just a pilot. But the pilot was a learning experience for our city managers like KCCA, where they've actually created more spaces. I think I've heard of the 16 meter stretch along the Mukwano railway lane that will also be developed. There's also a network at the Speak Road. So I know that these developments are going to help us to create a thinking that universality is quite important for all. But it's also a learning experience for the secondary cities, like I said. Since they are young cities, they are still developing their road networks. So I'm quite certain that as they're developing and they're adopting these universal road designs, they will actually develop more spaces for people to use for walking and also for cycling, especially for the wheelchair people users. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Richard. I think I'll hand over to Maureen.
Thank you so much, Richard. Maybe before I go to Julius, I also wanted to know, you talked about that in a Namirembe stretcher. How can we, what can KCCA do to enforce that these pathways that have been created that people with disability and even those without disability enjoy on walking on them? Because I always go that side and you find that borders, the bicycles are using the same pathways we are supposed to use. What can be done? Before I go to OG.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for that question. Yeah, you know that road development is quite challenging, especially in the informal spaces, especially as you go downtown. But I think this development, like I said, is a demonstration to highlight the key benefits, but also the challenges. Now that we have borders are, of course, a necessary evil, like people have actually said. They are quite important because they provide jobs and all that, but sometimes also they are very, very challenging in terms of regulation, especially when it comes to KCCA enforcing. So I think we can only encourage KCCA maybe to mobilize a couple or more resources to ensure that maybe they can increase on the enforcement. But you know that enforcement cannot be done by the city managers alone. It must be supported by the traffic officers of police. I've seen more marshals, of course, coming from other transport sector user committees, but also the individuals themselves. It must be an issue to do with discipline. So I think because we have not been well trained in regards to behavior, our mindset is quite ill in being disciplined in regards to using particular assets. So a road network that you see that is also labeled that this is actually for pedestrians and cyclists, and a border comes and passes there, or you find a taxi parked there. So when they park there, they are blocking the other user. But these are issues that are basically to do with behavior. So I think we need to have more of messaging. We need to do more messaging in regards to a mindset change, and then of course change your behavior. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. And also, if you get an opportunity also to talk to the people in the power, also those people who are the hawkers who trade their things in these pathways. Because I'm from downtown today and I've been suffering. Then I thought of my sisters and brothers who are using wheelchairs. How can they even enjoy going to downtown to buy whatever they want? Yeah, when I myself, who has crutches, or even someone without disability, face this congestion caused by these traders. Anyway, to go back to Julius. Julius, I want to ask you, what strategies have you implemented to ensure that the wheelchairs are accessible and usable in various environments, including rural areas and public spaces, to promote inclusivity and equality?
Yeah, thank you so much, Shamim. Yeah, for us as OJ Disability Care Foundation, our wheelchairs made to handle the road terrains in Africa. We all understand that we do not have a good road terrains in Africa, but our wheelchairs are tailor-made to handle the terrains in Africa. We involve a lot of strategies. One, we share with district leaderships where we always go to ensure that the public places are accessible in terms of the ramps, because that's our major area of work. If you are providing a wheelchair and then the place is not accessible, still you have done a disservice. You have not provided an independent life to that person. So for us, in terms of our work, we engage with different stakeholders to ensure that the wheelchair users or the chairs that we give out to our recipients, they must be able to access the places independently. There must be ramps in public places. But more further, in terms of our wheelchairs come in different sizes. From size 12 that handles children, size 14 still handles children. We have size 16 that handles adults, size 18 handles adults, size 20 handles adults. So all these wheelchair size numbers that I have mentioned are the sizes that suits both the adults and children, and there is nothing like issues of gender here. It's tailored for people with disabilities, whether you're a woman, whether you a man. All those sizes that I have mentioned are the sizes that we provide to our wheelchair recipients. I want to also share with you that, Shamim, our wheelchairs come with what we call mountain bike tires. The mountain bike tires are the tires which are specifically made to handle the rural areas. So if someone is in the village, they are able to navigate without finding any difficulties. And then they also come with our wheelchairs also come with spare parts, so that if your wheelchair breaks down, we understand the hassle in terms of finding spare parts for this mobility in Uganda. Most wheelchairs have actually become redundant in the villages, in people's houses, because they do not have the spare parts. So for us to continue ensuring that the users of these chairs continue using them. When they break, we're able to maintain them. We have the maintenance desk. We have the technical team whose work is actually to ensure that the wheelchairs are repaired when they break down. And of course, we also ensure that the chairs come with the toolkits. We don't want people to go and hustle. We understand the dynamics in terms of the environment, in terms of our people are suffering. So for us, we ensure that all our wheelchairs, they have the toolkits. If the tire depletes, you are able to fix it yourself as a person with disability or as a wheelchair user. There's no need for you to go to look for some technician or someone to do it. We do take these people through the training in terms of the usage of the wheelchairs. Shamim, that's what I can be able to share with you in terms of what we are doing. Of course, Shamim, we also understand that our public transport. The second speaker spoken about the public transport, but I think the fact that we all must accept and agree on that as a country we are still behind in terms of the public transport, in terms of the accessibility, because we do not have the C9 wheelchair cars here, all those cars that come when they have the ramps for the wheelchair users. I personally, when I'm before I got a car, I used to travel on a taxis. I could not travel on a bus because it was a very hectic thing to climb to get up there on a bus. So when I want to come to Kampala, I have to use a taxi from Soroti up to Mbale to Kampala, because I was not accessing a bus was very difficult. So in terms of our public transport, of course, we all have to agree that we still have a lot of things to do in terms of the advocacy and the right people that we think. Of course, it's the Ministry of Transport and transport, because they're the right people to ensure that the cars with accessibility, or that people can access, especially the wheelchair users in the country, even sharing with the private companies that import these cars. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Julius. I wanted to correct you there. You were being interviewed by Maureen, not Shana.
Oh,
so
sorry,
it was Maureen.
Maureen.
But
Maureen,
it is all good. We understand. I just had to put it out there. So, Richard, what strategies have been implemented in your sustainable housing and settlement programs to ensure that persons with disabilities have equal access to safe and affordable housing in Uganda? If you would probably tell us about your sustainable housing and settlement program first.
Well, thank you so much, Shamim. Once again, as I mentioned before, I am a board member of Shelter and Settlement Alternatives that has also a network of many other housing interested kind of organizations that are basically promoting affordable housing options in Uganda and technologies as well. So as one of our biggest contribution has also been towards inclusive policies in the housing sector, where of course we've been able to work together with the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development on key issues in the direction of improving reducing the deficit of housing units in Uganda, which currently of course is above 2 million at the moment. So we think that by contributing to the ministry's efforts we actually are contributing as well to also the sector programs that we think will actually have an opportunity either to demonstrate housing options that they have in regards to technologies. You know that most recently we have what we call interlocking soil stabilizing blocks, or ISSB, mobility, block options, building options. But in regards to the same, when we are talking about building designs and that include passive building design and green building designs, as a climate change approach, we're actually focusing on the materials of housing that we can actually have. What types of materials can we use for building, for construction of a fully fledged house? So in Uganda, we have very many options, and we think that tapping into the existing resources in regards to innovation hubs and some of the other member organizations like the Uganda Housing Cooperative Union, they have demonstrated some of these options, and we know that when we grow the numbers, we can actually promote some of these technologies more. The problem is that some of these new technologies are not very well known, are not known by the people or by the majority. So I think that by working with disability people's organizations, we can actually promote some of these technologies so that people are aware, you know, that these things exist, and they can actually maybe help you do away with that whole bundle of a budget for housing that was probably an engineer could have informed the person who was intending to build a house, to know that you can actually have a 40% reduction or almost 50%. So I think with these new technologies, we can actually have low-cost housing and affordable housing for all, including people with disability. The Shelter and Settlement Alternatives has a project called Kwefako Housing Project in Bujuko. It's a demonstration. So it can actually demonstrate that maybe if we are not able to work individually through housing cooperatives, maybe we can actually be able to put up a few resources by saving and also investing in housing as a sector. So I think at the moment, that's what I can say, because they are standardized housing designs. They are standardized or accepted technologies for building, especially the ISSBs, for example. But there are also other options that we can actually tap into to ensure that wherever we are, maybe in the far-reach areas where it is very hot, we use a particular option. Where it is too cold, we also use a particular option. Where it is a bit mild, there are some options that are actually tested, as we are also doing at Makerere University under the new Urban Research Governance and Innovation Center that we just created. So we just need to open up. I think this is an opportunity for disability people's organizations to open up and tap into some of these existing networks and coalitions to see that they are able to learn more of some of these existing technologies. I appreciate the the questions, and I hope I've actually answered well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard, for that insight. Going to Julius.
Yes.
I want to ask you some, okay. Julius, how do we advocate for policy changes and infrastructure development to support accessible and inclusive transportation systems, enabling persons with disability to fully participate in a society?
Yeah, for us as the foundation, I shared already earlier on. I said, in our work, of course, we do conduct advocacy engagements with local governments or local authorities for improving the accessibility in public buildings. For us, we believe that when a wheelchair user is given a chair, and where the person is going is not accessible, then it's that place that has made a person to be a person with disability, but not the person who is on a chair who is a person with disability. It's the reason why we continue to engage with the policymakers to share with them on areas to address when it comes to the infrastructure in our country. In Soroti, I want to share with you where we're based in. Most of the places were not accessible, including the hotels. And for us, we address this issue beyond the ramp, because if we only look at the ramp, of course, we are limiting. But also we're looking at the infrastructure. You can find that you can go to the hotel, my dear friends, and you find that the door to the washroom is narrow, whereby a wheelchair user can't be able to enter inside with his or a wheelchair. So these are all part of what we do. I mean, what we work to advocate for. We try to ensure that we engage with the leadership at all levels to ensure that the public building is accessible for our brothers and sisters who are wheelchair users or non-wheelchair users. We also monitor policy development and engage in ongoing advocacy efforts to ensure that accessibility is considered as a priority. It is taken as the first thing. If you come to Soroti one time, we can be able to take you to some of the places that we have contributed towards in terms of improving the accessibility.
Julius, is that you?
Sorry, I've lost me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can
Okay,
hear you.
thank you. I wanted to say that as at OJ Care Foundation, we are trying our best to ensure that the places are accessible. In terms of also creating awareness to the public, we have had scenarios here where you go to a public place, there is a ramp, but a vehicle has parked in front of the ramp and has blocked the ramp. So for you as the wheelchair user, you remain now outside because the space which was meant for you has been blocked. So we create also the awareness in terms of trying to sensitize the public that these places that you see with a sign for a wheelchair user and or for a person with disability is not just put as a design, but it's a communication to you that it is a ramp. You should not be able to park your car in front of the ramp. And then we are also involved, we believe that the best way to do things is practical, is by making some paintings with wheelchairs so that people know that this is a place designated for a wheelchair user. So when it comes to the parking, a person is able to understand that this is area meant for those who are wheelchair users. But in overall view of what I've shared with you, ours is to engage the policymakers at all levels to ensure that the place is accessible. We all know that advocacy is a continuous process. There are some part of this that are short term, then that those are long term. So we all set strategies in terms of seeing what can be done first. And for us, it's installation of ramps in most of the public places. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Julius. Like you said, advocacy is a journey, so let us keep on keeping on. Let me go to Richard. Richard, how do your energy transition and building design initiatives incorporate universal design principles to promote accessibility and usability for persons with disabilities in Uganda's built environment?
All right. Thank you so much for the question once again. Well, the energy transition is a huge thing. And it's a climate change driven kind of initiative. Of course, focusing on how are we looking at our energy options that will be available for our next user generation. Most importantly, it's about when you're talking about building designs, you're talking either about orientation of the housing unit or the green building components of the house, including the materials that they use for construction of the house. However, it's very important that in regards to codes, building codes, we also emphasize that all housing units should be accessible for all. And of course, to start with, there must be a couple of if there's necessity for a high-rise kind of house, there must be either a ramp or a lift, or so that it helps the movement of the other party from one particular space onto the other, maybe that is higher at a certain level. Secondly, that in terms of energy, we focus a lot on two issues to do with also physical impairment in regards to the eyes and all that, because of the fact that we know that a house must be very well lit. So either during day and or night, there must be enough light for any user. And so during the day, we encourage that maybe we focus a lot on promotion of solar lighting options, like a transparent iron sheet, maybe, or using solar lighting systems. So we think that in some of the dark spaces of the housing unit, there could be this could be an opportunity that can be explored to use solar systems to see that space is actually well lit all through and through. The other is basically to see that a housing unit is not a house as you see it in its own shape, but a settlement. It includes the compound and all the other spaces. So sometimes you want to get out of your house because it is hot. So we encourage that in that space of where the house exists, we could plant a couple of trees. Those trees basically help you to have shelter, so that you don't keep in the house, do not cook yourself in the house the whole time, but you keep yourself out there whenever you feel you want to enjoy some air, you want to have a small drink with your friend or something to eat, you want to have a family meeting or a meeting with friends. You don't have to do all these things in the house, but choosing to have a well greened space outside with a couple of trees, flowers and all that, something that looks attractive to any other person. Maybe it will encourage the other person to come and see, oh, I love your house. Beyond looking at just a ramp, you've actually also improved the ambience or the attractiveness of the house. The other thing we encourage is, of course, lighting, bright colors that can be visible for all. So in regards to you how your rooms are lit, or it can help to differentiate if you use contrasting colors. So we know that if you use maybe a cream or white, you can actually encourage more people to see more than when you use very dark colors like black inside the house or brown. So some of those colors should actually be used outside. So I think for me, that's one of the key things that I would speak to in regards to accessibility to a house for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard. Before I go to OJ, I wanted to know more. Yes, you have talked about the ramps, the colors. What can be done to see that even other categories of disability, for example, those with hearing impairment, those with who are blind, so that when they are in a building and there's maybe an uncertainty or any danger that has come in, so that they can be able to evacuate that place safely. What can be done so that we achieve that?
Yeah, thank you so much. But just like OJ said, I think he tried to point out to issues to do with safety issues beyond just basically the ramps. A house should be safe for all at all times, you know. So it should be safe in such a way that in case there's a fire, there's an exit, you know, there's a nearby exit, but also for, of course, extreme issues that like you said, impairments, hearing impairments. You know, there should be options for an individual. Maybe there are buttons that are pressed by a particular individual with particular writings, maybe, you know, so, or just by the touch of the surface, someone can easily exit because they can tell that this rough surface maybe means this. Probably there's a step, you know, so that I don't have to topple over, or when I touch this particular scribbling, maybe it means that I've reached the entrance or the exit. So I think such kind of things, because some of these unique impairments also you need unique installations. So it may not be a one size fits all. It must be categorical in such a way that it means that particular audience's particular needs. Yes. So it cannot be universal. It must be also strategic to what particular impairment are we addressing. So I think those are just basically a couple of examples, but unique design can actually be developed for users, for different users. I thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Richard. Now let me ask OJ my last question. Can you share with us a story or a data on the impact of your organization wheelchair distribution program on the lives of persons with disabilities, highlighting any notable success or challenges in promoting mobility and inclusion in Uganda? Over to you, OJ.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. One, in terms of our work for the past 3 good years, we have provided 1,060 wheelchairs to people with disabilities in Uganda. And those are the lives that we have changed within the period of 3 years. In terms of our work, we have stories, of course, like coming in from a lady in Nabilaituk in Karamoja region, who was brought to our wheelchair distribution. I want to restrain from using the word distribution, but providing, who came to our wheelchair provision camp in Nabilaituk in Karamoja. She was brought being rolled on a wheelbarrow. and they shared with us that if there's no one to push the wheelbarrow, there's nowhere she can be or she can go. So when we provided the wheelchair to the lady, she was extremely happy because we had relieved her from the suffering of being at home all the time, because if there's no one to push you on your wheelbarrow, you can't move. We also have a story from a district called Kitgum. Of recent, we went to do a wheelchair provision in Kitgum, or providing wheelchairs to people with disabilities in Kitgum. And there was a lady who had 3 children with a physical disability, but only one of them was identified to receive a wheelchair in Kitgum. She came to us crying, telling us, please, I have 2 children. For us, we thought maybe it was from the neighbor she says, no, they are my children. We told her that go and bring the rest of the 2 children. And they were brought. We provided this family of 3 children with the wheelchairs. And you just don't need to know how the mother feels. She has been relieved because she could not do anything in terms of lifting up the family's livelihood or economic resources. The children post actually provided her with mental issues, because there was no way she could be able to, do things that bring money in the house. So the children posed actually what we would call economic burden to her, since there was no way she can leave the children in the house alone. So she decided to remain to take care of the children. So you can imagine what that woman has been going through before she received, the children received their free gift of mobility. We also have a story from a boy who actually stopped going to school because the school was extremely far away, and he stopped. And he was one of those that was identified to receive our wheelchairs. The boy has gone back to school now because of the free gift of mobility, which we have provided. We would have given you even more. And the last one I want to give you is a story of a young boy who was locked in the house for over 10 years. He's always in the house. He has never seen a number of people that can reach even 5. So when he was brought in our distribution sites or these provision camp sites, he cried because he looked at everyone as animals. Till at another level, he started understanding that I think these are human beings. These are people like me. At the end, when we left the place, our social workers had tried their best to speak to the boy. We saw the smile coming in his face. So that one alone, the mother shared with us and said that her son is always inside. She locks him so that she can go and do her things to raise monies, to look for food, because the husband abandoned her. So you can imagine what our work has tried to do to improve the welfare or the well-being of persons with disabilities in different parts of our country. There was a bit where he said that what could be also our challenges in terms of our work. Definitely for us at OJF Disability Care Foundation, we want to tell you that in what we have chosen to do is one of the most stressing things that you can imagine is providing a wheelchair. We get a demand need of wheelchairs across the country. Imagine we have 135 districts in Uganda, and you have the requests coming in those districts. Sometimes even your work plan alone can be affected, even if you said, I want to only work in this district, because there are situations that will come and you will really feel like, I think we need to include this. So one of the challenges that we are facing, it's the high demand need of mobility, versus what we receive on our annual basis, because we receive sometimes 2 containers, sometimes 1 container, and this depends on how we have raised the money for cost sharing in terms of the importation, and this includes transportation from Mombasa up to Uganda, whereby our foundation has to ensure that they raise $5,000 as a requirement before even the wheelchair sponsors begin signing the LPOs. So that's one thing we first have to do. So you can imagine what we go through. Another challenge that we want to be honest with you, that we face also, we also go to these communities, but we also find other people with disabilities, whereby you find that maybe the wheelchairs that we have taken are not suitable for them, especially for the CP, cerebral paralysis cases. They need customized wheelchairs. So sometimes the parents feel so bad when the doctors or the physiotherapists don't allow their people to get those wheelchairs which are manual, or the manual wheelchairs that we give. So you find that those also need those customized wheelchairs, but we don't provide the customized wheelchairs. We also have people who request for tricycles, and yet in our programming or in terms of our work, we are not providing tricycles. We are only providing wheelchairs, and there's so many assistive devices, of course, that communities require. You can go and you find that there are even more than 20 people who need walkers. There are people who need crutches. There are people who need also white cane sticks. So all these are the challenges that we face in terms of our work, especially at the time when people know that we are providing assistive technology or devices to different people with disabilities in Uganda. The last one that I want to share with you in terms of the challenge that we go through, it's the resources. Resources is one of also our biggest challenge. Imagine you are told to raise $5,000 for importation cost as part of your contribution, and you have about 2 containers. That's about 40 million or 38 million shillings that we have to raise that money locally. Sometimes you reach out to different people that please support me. Remember, there's no one who is willing to give you anything without anything in return. You find that somebody is telling that if I support you, I want you also to support my community of persons with disabilities because I have them in my communities. In essence, when you fail to do that, you become a problem. Yet you know that you can't reach out to everyone in one day. But remember, you need the support to ensure that other people's lives are enlightened, other people's lives are transformed. So that is also another challenge that we face. Then also in terms of local deliveries, you have been given chairs. Now the question is, how do you reach with your wheelchairs to the district of Shamim, to the districts of Asha, to the districts of Maureen? It's quite a lot of money. So we also get those challenges whereby you get stuck. Like recent, we were supposed to have taken wheelchairs to the district called Kanungu, but all the transport vehicles in this town were asking us 2.5 million, whereby even the partner did say she or he is unable to raise the money. Now, when you fail to make those deliveries, if a person has contributed 200,000 and you fail to make those deliveries, you become a topic of discussion everywhere. So it is one of the biggest challenge that we face. That's why I told you earlier on that the path that we have chosen in terms of providing the mobility is one of the toughest path in terms of our work. I hope this has been of help to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julius. It's humbling listening to all the work that you're doing to promote mobility of everyone. We pray for more grace and let us continue with our advocacy and raising awareness that perhaps we can get people on board who can help and plug those gaps that we are seeing so that you can continue doing the good work. Coming back to you, Richard, can you share examples of how teens work in greening and open public spaces such as markets and forests, includes persons with disabilities in the design, implementation, and management of these spaces to ensure their full participation and benefit?
Yeah, thank you once again. Maybe to start with is that I need to make this note, maybe to remind us that it's been mentioned that Uganda, the whole of Uganda is a planning area. So that's where we need to start from. In regards to the green spaces are part of the other spaces that we plan for under physical planning. So in physical planning, we have the National Physical Planning Act now, and policy, which was launched recently by the President. So we need to know that in regards to urban development, because now we're talking about urban spaces, we need to ensure that there's a rethinking of land use, of how we are using, how we're using particular areas or spaces, maybe for agricultural purposes, maybe for industrial work, maybe for markets, maybe for other public services like schools, building schools and hospitals and all that. So as teens, we have supported the greening of, maybe to start with, we supported the work of the ministry to ensure that we have the National Physical Planning policy, and then we have supported two districts, the district of Arua and Gulu, in ensuring that their physical development plans are greened. So greening, I think as we discuss further, we'll talk about the different types of greening, especially of spaces. But we've also worked with the Ministry of Water and Environment and the Climate Change Department, the Wetlands Department, to ensure that we also protect wetland space ecological systems as part of the greening buffer zones that we have in Uganda. And you've seen us on a couple of occasions dialoguing with young people, encouraging exhibitions, having public dialogues, hosting a couple of events here and there, and being part of the celebration of the commemoration of the World Environment Day every 2nd of February each year. So I think to start with, that is one of the key things we need to push forward. But we also coordinate a couple of spaces for young people especially, because we know that we need to educate them more so that we can start with the mindset changing requirements early enough, because they usually say that it's very hard to teach an old dog new tricks, but with the children and youth it becomes a little bit easier if you give them the skills early, but also the information early to advocate for some of these spaces. So we are part of what we call the Environment and Natural Resources CSO network under Environmental Alert, and we spearhead the thematic working group for youth, as well as the forest working group, where we focus on promotion, advocating for natural resource justice for starters, but also for ensuring that we develop key messages and disseminate them among the spaces where we work to ensure that the environment is taken care of by people planting more trees, by managing their waste better, by also in creating more spaces for urban food systems. So we ensure we focus more on domestic or household initiatives by individuals themselves, by families, before we even go to municipalities and maybe cities as part of our work. Maybe to come back to markets. For the last 2-3 years, we have been doing familiarization visits with under the Uganda National Urban Forum, or UNAF, under the Ministry of Lands, Housing and Urban Development, so that we go speaking to city managers in all the other cities that I talked about, the 11 cities. The issue is basically to help them understand why they need these public spaces. And these public spaces should be not only be protected or gazetted, but should also be accessible for all people. So we think that by protecting them, we're encouraging more people to focus onto them, like green parks, or what they call ecological parks, or nature parks, so that when you're moving in the city, you find a space that is actually protected. Like, for example, in Kampala, we have so many of them. Like Sheraton Hotel is a public space. If you go to the children's space here in near Acacia Mall in Kamocha, if you go to Senere Park, some of these spaces are not accessible because probably they've been given to private managers, private investors. But these are public spaces. So once they become more open, that means that people can actually access them by going to enjoy them, to see nature, by going to go and sit down and have a drink, have a chat with someone in that free space. The city square is another. I think you see I could just mention a couple of them, such that when you're passing them in the city, you know that this is actually a public space, Yeah, so it's very important that all communities, all cities, all municipalities, all town councils have these spaces, like just as they have markets, So markets are not only are not the only public spaces that we have. There are so many of them, So coming back to markets, yeah, we, as part of our visit, we've also been commending some of the markets that have actually taken action. For example, some of them that have ramps, some spaces like when you go to Soroti Market, it's really an accessible market. When you go to Gulu Market, it is very accessible. When you go to nowadays Entebbe, the new market, it is accessible. When you go to Hoima, they are quite accessible because they have ramps. They may not have lifts to make it easier, but some of them, I think, because they are adjusting from the kind of markets we knew before, we ascertain that in the next future, we know that these markets will actually be more public or more open for all. Secondly, if you look at the example of Soroti Market, I want to dwell on Soroti because it's quite up there. That they actually have a good lighting system. They've utilized the solar lighting systems by having transparent iron sheets. So all through the day you can be able to access, you see the market quite open with everything there, with every trader or vendor, so there are less chances for people to collide because there's a lot of lighting. But I also believe in the night, they actually have adopted the system of providing enough light as well. So by having some of these systems installed, by encouraging more innovations appreciated, we think that public spaces can actually have more chances of being open. The other thing is that we also need to focus onto bringing leisure units, such that when Shamim is moving around in this green space, she doesn't go and just sit. Of course, there are spaces for sitting, but you don't just sit. You can have something to eat, a drink at an affordable price. So there should be a food center, there should be a drinking, maybe for people who like chocolate or teas or whatever, or juices. You're able to find that in that particular space. So we encourage more of such kind of things for such places, such that they can become more open to each and every other person, not for only people who can afford, the rich guys, As teens, we also encourage the reorganization of markets. Sometimes you could find markets that are very disorganized. But when you go to the new layouts of these markets, you find that actually they have more space for you to maneuver through, to see what items you want to buy, but also to access your next route as you exit. The other last one, maybe just to mention, is the point of one of our key proposals to the Wetlands Department. I met personally with the commissioners and I told them, you know what? In some of these wetland areas that people are violating and degrading, I think you've had the experience of Lubiji here in Nansana and so many others. People being evicted. But people are evicted because they are not aware. Some of them are just adamant, but they have been informed, but they say, what will they do to us, But I think by creating more platforms for knowledge sharing, for information dissemination, people will become more informed. I actually prefer that we have more community engagements, more dialogues with the locals so that people are aware. Yesterday, but one, I was actually invited to a meeting and a lady was a victim of eviction, but I think in Makindye. But when we were discussing, she learned a lot. That actually, she said she had bought land, but there are no plots in wetlands. No one can have a plot or a land title in a wetland. So when she learned a lot, she said she's actually going to talk to her husband so that they can actually be more conversant with what the law says and the other guidelines by probably NEMA or the other institutions. So knowledge is very important. We are discussing because we want to learn and unlearn some of the things that we knew, that we thought we were right, but were actually wrong. But also to get new skills new knowledge skills. So one of my key proposals was that some of these spaces that people are violating should actually be turned into eco parks or nature parks, so that we have people going to visit to appreciate the wealth that is actually in these wetlands, as learning experiences, but also for leisure, such that you can find Maureen or Asha or anyone, in these spaces enjoying, you can go and learn a lot of species or that survive underwater in that particular wetland. Like the Nabujuzi wetland in Masaka as a city, they have that space, So some of these things were destroyed, but they used to exist. So if we can have them for the future of the next generation, children going to learn, we who are not informed, go and learn, for the community to go and learn. As you enjoy your learning, but you're also probably learning a couple of things on how best to invest, because when we're talking about wetlands, we're talking about wise use of wetlands so that you don't degrade them. We're talking about innovation in wetlands. We're also talking about wetlands education, then restoration of the wetlands. You don't want to be a victim of nature, So you have built in a wetland. People they call it reclaiming, or close to a lake, Lake Victoria, and then the water starts rising. You lose your property. Sometimes you actually lose your life. You don't want to go into such kind of things. So rather you learn, and then you know what is for where the extent of a wetland should be, or any form of a water body. Yeah, so I think with those so many kind of words, I appreciate that at least from this conversation we actually been able to learn a couple of things, one or two. I thank you so much for hosting me as well.
Thank you so much, Richard. It has been a very enlightening discussion this evening. I think we've learned so much about all the fantastic work that you're doing at TEENs, and we hope we can engage with you more. I have the same sentiments with my brother Julius.
Maybe just to mention shortly, there's a project that we're actually implementing with Advocacy for Public Spaces. They're part of our partners, where we distribute tables or lockers, a good design of lockers to markets, and we also create children's daycare spaces in the markets, so that children can be protected. They have where to play from, as their mothers or fathers are actually working, so that they are not neglected to suffer from maybe any forms of accidents where such care spaces are not provided for. That's what I want to mention. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard, once again, for all the fantastic work that you're doing at TEENs. Thank you, Julius. It has been enlightening for me, and I think for our listeners. I've learned so much about all the things that you're doing, and we pray for more grace. I think my key takeaways more advocacy is needed. On the side of Richard, I think more engagement is needed. Awareness creation. I think there is a bit about sustainability for the next generation. And what did I miss? Dialogue, definitely, with I think the people that I forget that, but the natives where these spaces are, to dialogue with them and tell them about the importance of why should be preserving these spaces, and probably also learning from them. I will let Shana wrap up, but thank you. It has been such a pleasure to have you this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much as well. Thank you, Asha.
Thank you, Asha.
Thank you both, and thank you, Asha. Really, I can only echo Asha's words. It's been very enlightening for me, and I would like to thank Richard for bringing up the Nema situation, because all of us were really up in arms about it, yeah, that how do you just evict people without communicating. So there's really a lot of miscommunication or poor information dissemination, which we need to improve, like you shared. We need to improve in the way we disseminate information and also make people aware of the existing laws, because I think like these are people who have been there for decades and even have children and grandchildren. So there's a lot that the government needs to do about that. But like your work for teens, it's really it's a lot and it's amazing. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much.
We learn so much, and we do acknowledge that we need to make partnerships on SDG 11, because we were all very green about it, and I'm like, oh, I know Richard does work in SDG 11, but for us SDG 11 is about accessibility to the physical environment.
I know there are many things that we have not talked about, especially in terms of historical assets. So water issues, we can't exhaust it, but it's okay, yeah.
No, but like there are other aspects like affordable housing, yeah, and also the transportation system, because these are the things that are basically basic human rights. Yeah, someone has to have housing, shelter, yeah, and transport. So really, thank you for that, for expanding our knowledge beyond accessibility to the physical environment. And Julius, your work is amazing. For me, like when I see your advocacy on social media, I'm like really impressed. And the stories that you shared are really heartwarming. So thank you for sharing that bit of good that you do with us. It's amazing. And I like that you mentioned the problem with getting onto the buses. I just told someone last week that it's very difficult to get onto the taxis. For me, as someone with a physical disability, the steps are quite high. I can't lift my leg that high, so I need support to be put onto the taxi and even off. And like for women, this encourages indecent touches, which isn't welcoming. Yeah, so this is something also like they need to look into in the transportation sector, like how do persons with disabilities get into public transport, because we can't use like taxis alone and borders alone, and private car use is quite expensive.
That's very true.
So I like that you mentioned that. I like that you mentioned those challenges.
Thank you so much.
On that note, thank you all for staying with us for the Sustainable Development Goals series. It's been 2 months and a half. Lots of work that has gone into this. So many guest speakers, so much experience, so much knowledge. There's a lot to take away for us as persons with disabilities, and there's also a lot for us to learn from and to where to improve. So I'd love to appreciate you for actually being the last guest for this series.
Thank you.
Let me have Maureen say something, and then we can close the space.